This small piece of plastic controlled whether a human being could enter a particular building. It displayed their name, their face, and the organization they belonged to. They wore it around their neck for most of the day, and the building it unlocked, a place where many of them spent more of their waking hours than they did at home. According to the surviving records, they went there voluntarily. Hello, and welcome to Searching for Earth, the channel where we examine the objects, habits, and frankly baffling decisions of ancient human civilization. I'm Erever. Today we're investigating one of the most important spaces of the early information age, a place humans visited almost every single day, a place full of computers, uncomfortable chairs, artificial lighting, and coffee of questionable quality. Today, we're talking about the office. But before we explain what happened inside one, we should probably explain how we found this one. 6 weeks ago, Earth Recovery Unit 67 was surveying the remains of an old commercial district. Most of it had collapsed centuries ago. But beneath one structure, the team found a sealed underground section. The upper floors were gone, but the entrance lobby and 2 office levels had survived. With no air movement, hundreds of small objects were perfectly preserved. Keyboards, coffee mugs, plastic plants, which were never alive to begin with, rolling chairs, and dozens of identification cards like this one. This card belonged to someone named Daniel Brooks. We don't know what Daniel did. We don't know if he enjoyed it. But according to the building's access records, Daniel arrived at 8:43 every morning, usually after 51 minutes of travel. We'll come back to that decision, because it's a strange one. Can we bring up the reconstructed interior? Yes, that one. At first, our researchers assumed this was a school examination hall. The rows of desks made sense. The uncomfortable chairs made sense. The faint atmosphere of low-level anxiety also made sense. But there were no students. A second theory suggested a communal dining facility. Unfortunately, most of the desks contained computers instead of food. Eventually, we reached a stranger conclusion. This was a place where adults gathered every weekday to sit at separate desks and work on separate computers, which raises an obvious question. If they were all working individually, why did they need to be in the same room? We've thought about this a lot. We still don't have a good answer. Here's the strange part. By the early 21st century, most of these workers already had computers at home. They had video calls, shared documents, instant messaging, the technology to work from almost anywhere. So naturally, every morning, millions of them ignored all of that and traveled to one specific building. They called this the commute. It could take 30 minutes, it could take 2 hours, and because everyone traveled at the same time, the roads filled up completely. They called this rush hour. The word rush implies speed. The footage implies the opposite. Then, having arrived, they would sit at a computer and message other people online. Some were in other cities, some in other countries, and some were sitting about 15 meters away. We have no explanation for the last group. Inside, each worker was given a small territory, sometimes a private room, usually a desk, often boxed in by little walls called cubicles. A cubicle offered just enough privacy that you couldn't see your neighbor, and not nearly enough that you couldn't hear them. Workers decorated these desks with photos, plants, snacks, and small toys. Officially, the desk didn't belong to them. Emotionally, it very much did. The same went for cups. We've recovered mugs labeled "My Mug," "Hands Off," and "Do Not Touch," which suggests the office was not always a peaceful place. Eventually, someone had an idea. Remove the cubicle walls entirely. They called it the open plan office, and it was meant to improve communication. And it did, especially the communication of conversations, phone calls, keyboard noise, chewing, coughing, and the phrase, "Do you have a quick minute?" So workers who needed to concentrate started wearing headphones, which means they removed the walls to help people talk, and then people put on headphones to stop hearing each other. This was considered progress. Now, the most sacred office ritual of all, the meeting. A meeting was when several people stopped working to sit in a room and talk about the work they were no longer doing. There were meetings before a project, meetings during a project, and after the project, a meeting to discuss how the earlier meetings had gone. Some had presentations, some had charts. Most had at least one person saying, "Let's take this offline," which did not mean going offline. It meant having the conversation somewhere else. Sometimes they spent so long scheduling meetings that they needed a meeting to schedule the meetings. And then there was a special category the records simply call a meeting that could have been an email. An email, by the way, was a written message. One email often produced a reply from everyone, which produced a longer email, which produced, you guessed it, another meeting. It was a remarkably efficient system for producing more of itself. But the office wasn't only about doing the work, it was also about being seen doing the work. In many organizations, arriving early meant enthusiasm, leaving late meant dedication, and leaving exactly on time meant something suspicious, which led to a strange situation. A worker who finished early and went home could look less committed than one who worked slowly and simply stayed visible for a few more hours. In fairness, this wasn't every office, but it shows up often enough that we think looking busy had real value. One popular theory held that people worked better when a manager could see them. Whether they actually worked better or just looked busier is honestly still under investigation. Officially, the workday ended in the late afternoon. The actual workday often disagreed. Staying past your hours was called overtime. Sometimes it was a real emergency. Sometimes there was simply too much work. And sometimes people stayed only because their manager was still there, and leaving first felt dangerous. This was rarely a written rule. It was just understood, a phrase that explains a surprising amount of human behavior. Late at night, they finally went home, through dark streets and empty stations, carrying the same devices they'd used all day. And then quite often, they opened those same devices again at home. At this point, you might conclude the office was just an inefficient mistake, but that wouldn't be entirely fair. Offices gave people equipment, information, training, and each other. Hard problems were sometimes solved faster in the same room. New workers learned by watching. Teams came together more easily. And for a lot of people, the office wasn't only where they worked, it was where they made their closest friends, where they found mentors, where they competed, argued, celebrated, failed, and tried again. Some people met the love of their life beside a photocopier. Others sat next to the same colleague for decades, sharing thousands of ordinary days that only felt important once they were gone. The office took up so much of a human life that it became part of who they were. When people introduced themselves, they usually said what they did for work before almost anything else. So maybe the strangest thing about the office wasn't that humans traveled there every day. Maybe it was how much of themselves they left inside it. Daniel Brooks used this card to enter his office 2,184 times. We don't know what he worked on. We don't know if his meetings could have been emails, though. Statistically, some of them could. But we do know that for nearly 9 years, this building was one of the central points of his entire life. That's all for today's investigation. Next time, we'll examine an object found beside almost every office computer, a machine that produced a dark, bitter liquid humans believed was essential for functioning. The office coffee machine. Until then, I'm Erever, and this has been Searching for Earth.